now.
Hello, 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 everybody, and welcome to our podcast, Making the Right Moves. We are happy to be here this Sunday, the 16th of April. I have with me here Kayode Adekoya, who's a realtor,
Yep.
my husband, Kolaole Olasimbo, who is a mortgage agent, and myself, Tinuke Olasimbo, as well. I'm a realtor. So today we're going to be discussing part two of a topic that we had last, which was planning your next move. So we're going to round up that topic today. We're going to talk more about Kola, I think, was giving a scenario last week um, about a situation, and he's going to expatiate and round up that scenario. And we're going to just have a chat about it and encourage people um, on planning their next move. So I'll throw it over to Kola to.
Hi everyone. Hope you're enjoying the weekend. Thanks for joining us today. So, just a quick recap from our last episode. I was talking about the family that have a property, they own a property, siblings that had come together to purchase a property, and they have decided to go ahead and they planned to sell, but they didn't plan their next move properly because they had changes to their jobs, changes, a lot of financial changes amongst themselves, in which case they, at this point, would not qualify for a decent mortgage for them to be able to move on to the next property.
Right.
So they, to further that story, after our last podcast, they actually went ahead with the sale. Uh, I
Really?
had spoken with them and advised them to put a hold on the sale and try to hold on to that particular unit that they owned.
Hmm.
But the, at the time they were talking to me, the property was already on the market. So the realtor they dealt with actually proceeded with the viewings, and they got interested parties and they actually got offers on the property.
Right.
They gave me a call when they thought they had gotten the best offer at the time. And my advice still at the time was do not sell. Because if you're letting go of what you have, you cannot grab the next real estate property for yourselves. Why are you going to let go of what you have? Yes, they had financial issues that needed to be resolved. They had a bit of pressure in terms of their finances, but there's so many other ways that they could have been able to relieve themselves from the financial pressure or financial burden they had at the time, rather than let go of that property and not being able to grab the next one. So I still advise against selling. I'm like, you guys, take this property off the market. You would always get an offer. You're in the GTA, you're in a very prime location, you have a very good property in your hands. There's demand has been outweighing supply and will still continue to outweigh supply in the GTA because
Yeah.
of immigration, pretty much. But that's a topic for another day.
No.
So, but then I advised against it, but they still went ahead and sold.
And so, because I was just
They
going to
accepted the
just
offer. Yeah,
just
go
to,
ahead.
just to interrupt you real quick, and I apologize for this. I didn't get a chance to introduce myself, so don't worry, I was just messing with you. But anyway, the reason why I interrupted you was because I wanted to ask a question because you made a point that even though they had some financial pressures, there's so many other options that are available to them in
Yes,
terms of what they can do to sort of like relieve themselves of
yes,
those pressures while still holding on to the property.
correct.
So I was hoping that at some point you'll be able to highlight some of those options so that
We can
our
delve into that.
listeners can benefit from that.
Yeah, we could
Yeah.
delve into that right now, and then because the bottom line of the story is they went ahead with the sale.
Right.
Right now, they're letting go of their house, and
Okay.
they cannot buy the next one. Like
Right.
I said the other time, they have to move back in with their parents, right? So to elaborate on what you just highlighted there, let's paint a scenario.
Mm-hmm.
People run into different financial situations for so many reasons every day. We all see it every day. It could be
Correct.
you, it could be me, it could be anybody.
Could be anyone.
It
Right.
happens.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you have situations where right now the economic situation is, permit me to use the word bad. Everything is more expensive. There's inflation,
Yep.
and people are feeling the pressure. You have to spend more to maintain a particular lifestyle that you've had for years, but you are
Right.
not earning more. If you are not earning more and you are depleting more, you may at some point, especially in the Canadian economy where we have access to credit, you may get to a point where you are expensing more than you're earning, right? There's always, if you are doing that, it gets to a point where there has to be a give, right? So in order to avoid getting to that situation, well, it may be unavoidable. Don't let me use the word avoid. It may be unavoidable for some time, but that's kind of one of the scenarios where investing in real estate may help you come out of that type of situation. Now you're in a situation where you've had to pay additional interest fees on your mortgage because of like what's been happening lately. Bank of Canada had been increasing rates up till now. They kind of steadied it now. Bank of Canada had been increasing their rates steadily for some time, and people that are in variable rate mortgages have had to, with variable rate mortgages with the fluctuation, they've had to increase payments for their mortgages. So you had a budget of a monthly payment of 2,500, for instance. All of a sudden, you're seeing yourself in a scenario where you have to add $800, $1,000 to that mortgage. That's one way
That's
of
a lot. That's a
completing
lot.
more than, at the same time, your salary or your income has not increased.
Yep.
On the other hand, people now have to go do groceries. Maybe before you could walk into the grocery store and with a budget of $200, you have 3, 4, 5 full bags of groceries. Now you go and you barely come out with one full bag of groceries, right?
I'm
So
sure Atinuke can. I'm sure Tinu can speak to that.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
in order to keep up with the 5 bags, you've gone from
Yeah.
a $200 budget to a $600 budget or a $700 budget. Now you're depleting more funds than you used to. So
Right.
people rack up credit cards, lines of credit, savings, right? And it gets to a point where you feel so pressured and you're like, I can't continue doing this or I cannot sustain this. What's the way out? If you do have a property that has equity, in which case the guys in this story actually did. They had equity in that property.
On the property.
So they felt, well, let's sell. We'll figure out how we're going to buy later. Let us sell, relieve ourselves of this pressure, consolidate, sort of. Well, consolidate will not work in their favor anymore because the property is gone, right? Let us sell to be able to pay off debt and relieve ourselves of this pressure. That's what they did.
Right.
Now, the point is they could have still held on to the property and relieve themselves of that burden.
Okay.
That's where we come back to the term consolidate. You could consolidate your debt, right? And do so in a more financially wise position, right? Taking a financial step like that may involve, like, you may have to refinance your existing mortgage.
Okay.
In which case, you have a mortgage with a lender. You owe X amount of dollars. Now you have Y amount of dollars in debt. Your credit cards have been maxed out. Line of credit is high up in utilization. Savings have been mopped up. Now you take that excuse me, you take that, you put together, you pay a credit card payment that is at 20% interest rate. You have a line of credit with high interest. You've deplete those kind of things. If you look at what you're expensing to maintain and service all those individual
yeah,
debt,
credit.
let's put a number to it. Assuming every month now to service debt, you're putting in $2,500.
Okay.
Guess what? You find that you're paying out $2,500 to service the debt monthly, but you're still status quo, right? You're still expensing higher than you should,
right?
And the $2,500 you're expensing is actually literally just going into interest. That credit card statement still comes back to you.
The balance is still pretty high.
Yeah. You're just managing to keep up with interest payments because there could be high interest expenses, debt that you have. In that kind of situation, if you qualify to refinance your first mortgage, that is your best position. That's your best bet. Because take a look at it. I've had clients that I did a refi for, and this is kind of analysis that we put out there for them. You have yourself locked into a nice mortgage. You have a 2.5% interest fixed mortgage.
Right.
2 years to go on that term. And all of a sudden, you have so much debt because, hey, like we said, everything went up.
Things happen.
Now, you're looking at a scenario, I want to keep my 2.5%. I don't want to break this mortgage. If you refinance me, I'm going to be taking a 5% interest rate mortgage today. Yes, that may be true, but not necessarily so. We have what we call the blended mortgages as well. If you're in a scenario where, sorry?
No, I was going to ask, what does that mean? The blended.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to explain. If you're in a scenario where you have your first mortgage with lender A, and your interest rate is 2.5%. Now you have, I'm going to throw out numbers. That mortgage is, say, $500,000, $500,000. That's what the balance of that mortgage is.
Okay.
Then you take on debt of $100,000.
Right.
You're paying out 22% for the debt that you're carrying. Like on an average, maybe you're paying 20% on that debt. Let's make it simple. So you need a $100,000 injection to help you. And your property is worth $1 million. Your property is worth $900,000. Your property is worth $1.5 million. Bottom line is you have equity. Right. You may be able to refinance up to 80% loan to value of that property, depending on your income. Okay. So if your income allows you to carry additional, to increase the value of your mortgage, right? For instance, let's assume in this scenario, this person's income can borrow up to $650,000 for a mortgage. Mm-hmm. That means this guy can go in there, refinance his first mortgage, and get up to $650,000. But he doesn't want to touch that existing 2.5% fixed interest. That's fine. We may be able to, in some scenarios, take a mortgage of that $100,000 or $150,000 at the new interest rate on the market as of that day, at 5%, for instance.
Wow, now, that's interesting.
The bank would blend. Now you have mortgage A at 2.5%, 500,000 balance. Mortgage B is new at 5% for 150,000. The bank can blend your mortgage together. You still have a first mortgage. B is not a second mortgage. It's not. It's still considered a part of your first mortgage, in which case you now have mortgage AB as a first mortgage. Now it's blended because you don't see the math. This thing is computerized. You have a scenario, the bank does a calculation. You're still going to be paying one payment if you're comfortable with just one payment. So the back office takes care of the interest payment on the 500,000, your principal payment on the 500,000, the interest payment for the 150 added on, your add-on, and your principal payment of the 150 add-on. Blends the two payments together. That's all you see. So now you've gone from a $2,500 monthly payment to $3,000, for instance. Right? For both mortgages. I'm just throwing out numbers. But in a better situation to do that, than continuing to expense a higher amount in payment monthly, and you're not reducing that principal. So what happens is you put all that debt into a longer amortization. You might be amortizing 25 years, you might be amortizing 30 years, right? And you're not running on that monthly cycle with the credit cards. Now you ease yourself of the pressure of owning these credit cards. The careful part of that is the bank may require that you either shut down some of those credit facilities or reduce them. That can happen sometimes.
Which is fair enough.
The bank is looking at the risk that, okay, this guy just blew $100,000 on credit cards. If we consolidate this for him, add it onto his mortgage, and the credit cards are now available again, is he going to be in this position again in another 4, 5, 6 months? It's not impossible. Like, let's be real. So sometimes the lenders look at the risk, and if your income is not able to sustain that, they may say, you know what? You have 4 of these credit cards. You may need to shut down 2. Let's reduce your risk. But sometimes they don't do that. Sometimes they just say, hey, you're closing on so day these additional funds. We make sure you pay to the credit card. We want to see your statement back at 0. Be more plan your financial expenses better, and don't be back. Well, even if you come back and we can accommodate you, that's it. But yes, you could have that situation of being able to blend that mortgage. This is part of why we're doing this podcast. We need to push this information out there because some people have no idea that this is possible.
A lot of people don't know.
And it's such a relief for them to be able to have a better financial picture to deal with, right?
Yep.
That's an option. On the other hand, some people would not, maybe they're in the hands of a lender that would not accommodate that blended mortgage for them. But let's paint this picture again. You have a fixed 2.5%, but you're paying 22%, hello, on $100,000. If you take that $100,000 and add it to the $500,000 and you have to pay 5%, do the math. You're still better off increasing that mortgage interest to the 5% interest. You're still better off for doing that. And guess what? That extra interest you think you're paying, that expense, that equity you're taking out of that property, as long as you're holding on to that property, guys, it's the property that's paying off that interest for you. The property is going to service that debt for you. Because, hey, you take out 100,000. That 100,000 may not have been there when you bought the property. You partially worked for that money because all you did was invest. The property did the job for you. The property brought in that money for you.
Through passive growth.
Right? Passive growth. That same property still continues to grow, right? In which case, hey, all your expense in extra that you're spending on stepping up from, although you've saved from the 20%, but let's even just look at the part that you are worried about. Oh, I'm moving from a 2.5 to a 5%. Guess what? You've saved and the property is still growing and you still hold on to that property. Exactly. So that extra amount of money that you're paying out there, right, is money that you spent anyways, let's be honest. But that extra interest that you're paying right now, the property value is going to cover it in a period of time. It's just a question of time. The property grows again and it will make up that difference for you, right? It still makes sense to hold on to that property. Now, a third scenario is this. You don't even have the income to go back to your lender.
That's exactly what I was going to ask you. Like, the picture from the story you mentioned from the last episode.
Yes.
When we talked about the siblings, in their situation, their income is not able to support them getting a mortgage.
Borrowing more money. Correct.
Borrowing more money. So in that kind of scenario, how do they then address, what options do they have in terms of addressing that challenge where they have to consolidate some of the existing, liabilities into the mortgage to sort of like ease the pressures on them?
So let me paint the scenario. Now, guys, beware. In this type of scenario, your lenders usually do not when you sign up a mortgage with an A lender
Yeah.
or a B lender most of the time, they always have that clause, 99% of the time, that they would not allow a second mortgage come behind them.
Okay.
Bear in mind, it happens every day. People take second mortgages all day long to better manage their finances, and most oftentimes than not for the sake of consolidating debt.
Sorry,
So
Paul.
let's take that. That's the next approach that I'm going to put out there that was a probable solution in this situation.
So
Now,
before you proceed, I'm sorry I keep interrupting, and I
no problem.
apologize for that. So for the sake of our audience that do not know what a second mortgage is, can you just briefly describe what it is so that they have an understanding of what that means?
So when you go into a mortgage with a lender, you
Right.
give a mortgage, you have a certain amount, a certain loan to value of your property, right? You are the one giving the mortgage. The bank is lending you funds. The bank would register a lien to protect their interest on that property. So
Okay.
they put a lien on the title of that property for X amount of dollars that you have borrowed.
Okay.
That is a first position, we call it, of your mortgage. So they've registered that interest, right, on the title, right? Now, taking on a second means your first mortgage that you collect the borrowed funds from the lender for, that amount is still sitting in first position. You haven't touched it. You have not added to it, and you're still paying it. You still have that contract with the lender.
Mm-hmm.
Now you want to borrow more funds and still secure against that same exact property. Now
Right.
your property is standing collateral for two separate loans, right? That's what we put out, and it's tagged a second mortgage, right? So now you're taking position number 2 on that property, in which case you could be able to access, for some lenders that would take a first and second position, some lenders will create a scenario where they will not allow that blended, but they will give you what we call a secured line of credit. They open up a second position for you, like a second mortgage, but then they give you those funds as a line of credit, revolving. So you can use, pay back, get back to using it again. It's constantly available. You pay it, it's available, you use it again. So that is a revolving. That's an option. But sometimes the lenders say, well, you don't qualify to take additional funds from us because your income doesn't carry it. In which case, you go into what we call the private lending space. Now, the private lending space has a different approach most times to lending. Sometimes the approach they see, they deem acceptable to borrow you funds is not necessarily your income, not your credit situation, right? They look at the property. Does this collateral stand enough for the funds we want to borrow, want to advance to you? So let's paint a scenario. You owe $500,000.
Okay.
Property is appraised and it's worth $1 million, right? Potentially, you have $500,000 in equity. But private lenders, at that point in time, your first mortgage is at 50% loan to value.
Okay.
A private lender, you have different private lenders that are comfortable, excuse me, putting out different interest rate loans.
Yeah.
For thank you. Different interest rate loans for different loan to values, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the private lender says, okay, I'm willing to go 65% loan to value at 7.99%.
Okay.
I won't go higher than that. Oh, let the borrower says, oh, I want to go as high as 80% loan to value. Oh, well, I can accommodate that, but at 10%, at 11%, at 12%.
The high interest rate.
Higher interest rate, because now they're taking a higher risk in lending you more of your equity. So the private lenders would assess the property and use that property's borrowing capacity to advance funds, as against looking at what your income can borrow against the property,
Right.
right? Which is what the A and B lenders look at. They look at your income, they look at the property, they determine the loan to value that is allowed for that particular deal, and then they advance funds. So in this scenario of a private lending, these guys can access a private lender. They may have to go as high as, just throwing out numbers now, don't hold me accountable to this, 10%, right, in terms of borrowing funds, right? But if you look at it this way,
They're still better off, man.
it's still better off. Exactly.
Yep.
So in a
Still
situation
better
where
off.
you have pressure of 22.99% credit card payments,
Yep.
and as you're paying, your utilization is pretty much staying the same. Your balance is pretty much staying the same. All you're doing is paying interest. You can
Yep.
now put together, and then maybe they have to service 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 credit cards, and sometimes it becomes overwhelming to manage those numerous payments. One is due on the 13th, the other one is due on the 19th, and then they start forgetting payments. They start
You could
having
even miss a payment, affect your credit, all that stuff.
exactly.
Yeah.
So in that kind of situation, you can still consolidate them, put them in a private second mortgage, and
Right.
have a plan. That is extremely important. So these people now are in a situation where what I was planning for them was,
Mhm.
hey guys, let's have a 6-month plan, right? You guys have a situation today, but then there's foreseeable plans in the future that you're going to be in a better state to get back into a mortgage when you sell your property. So let's do this. Why don't we consolidate this debt, take a private second mortgage against that property, right? You have better interest rates. You have one payment to service the private, nothing to do with your first mortgage now. So now you're down to 2 payments instead of 5, 6, 7, whatever the case may be.
Right.
You have one first mortgage payment, and the second payment will be your private mortgage. And even more interesting, we're able to do some consolidated loans on private sometimes, and even accommodate your payment for some time. Say, oh,
Okay.
for the next 6 months, I want to breathe, right? My monthly payment on this second mortgage I'm taking to consolidate my debt is $1,000.
Right.
Let me prepay ahead of time. So add 6 months, 1 year to this loan and prepay. So I don't have to deal with that. Let me just focus on my first mortgage.
So if I
Right.
hear you correctly, what you're
Yeah.
saying is the monthly payment on that new mortgage
Yes,
will be paid off upfront.
that is an option.
It as an option, yeah.
Yes.
So that even relieves a bit more pressure on the borrower. Right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. So it gives you, it's an option. And that's kind of what I was painting to them. Guys, if you want to be free and breathe for some time, we could go 6 months on this, right? Take some time, get yourself together, consolidate this debt. The pressure is off. You can better manage yourselves. Income comes back into play, right? Now, in 6 months, in a year, in X amount of time that we plan for, when your situation is better, right, you can get into the market.
Right.
Step out there, get a realtor to take you out and sample what your next property is going to look like. Go out there, see what you can buy. As a mortgage agent, love to do an assessment, prior to clients going out into market. Let's do a pre-assessment of what you can borrow. How are we going to get you a mortgage? How are you going to be able to close on this property you want to buy? Then step out with your realtor to go have a look. You don't need to go out there, go view a property and sign right away. You could have a feel of the market before you actually make a decision. Or you don't know whether you want to live in Mississauga. You don't know whether you love Brampton. You don't know whether you want to go to Whitby, right? Go around, explore, sample those areas, look at the types of property your budget can afford, right? Then sit back, relax, and decide. And this is what I was saying to them, that let's give you some time, plan, let's consolidate you for now, get you that second mortgage, pay off all this debt, prepay some part of this because they had enough equity in the property to do so, right? Then come back into the market when we are ready, when we've pre-assessed and seen that you're ready to take a mortgage this time around. When they eventually find something they may be interested in buying, right? You could do it concurrently. Sell your property when you know you've found something, or you can find something you can also purchase. Run both deals concurrently, right? I'll leave the realtors to expatiate on the best strategies to be able to do that. But you run those deals concurrently, and then put that property up for sale. And guess what, guys? For instance, I was saying, if that person was owing $500,000 and borrows additional 100 or 150 as a private this time around, and you're selling a property worth 900,000, at the time you're selling, you pay off your first mortgage, you pay off that second mortgage that helped you to consolidate and make life better for you or easier to deal with on your finances. You pay off both mortgages, and you still have the rest of your equity to put towards the next property you're buying, right? You plug it out of here, you plug it into the next one. But if you plug it out of here and there's no next one to plug into, we're all human. There's a very high tendency you're going to spend that money.
That touching me up money.
Right? That's money. Money is meant to be spent, in my opinion. You know, you're just sitting on funds. If you don't plan, if you're not disciplined enough to know how to hold those funds for the time you have to wait to purchase the next property, you may run into problems.
And there are bigger risks around, selling and then waiting for some time, depending on how long that time is, to now purchase something else. There are bigger risks because the market could potentially shift, and when the market shifts, it becomes a problem, right?
Yeah, anything can happen. So that's kind of where we left it off with them. They have sold, they cannot buy, because what they did in their own situation, what they saw, the picture they saw was, let us sell and take some of the cash equity that we're cashing out of, pay off this debt, and keep what's left until we can buy it later in the future, right. Which is a plan, which is a good plan, but it's not the best plan.
It's not the best plan.
Because you're in you should always purchase in the market in which you are selling. Absolutely. Right? You've had different swings in the market. If you are in that high swing and you sell high, you're automatically going to buy high. If you sell when the market is a little low, you sell low, you buy low. But if you sell when the market is low, and now you're going into the market when the market is high, it creates more problems. It becomes more difficult or almost impossible, or even impossible for you to get your foot back in the that investment portfolio, right? So you may be lucky to have sold high, and then you're going into the market to buy low. Yes, that's possible as well.
Not possible, but no one can time the market.
No one has a crystal ball to be able to tell you that's what's going to happen. Yeah. So you're always better off selling your property in the same market that you're purchasing, right? So that's kind of another risk that I was advising them against. Hey, don't let it go now. Don't let it go now. Let it go when you're buying the next one. I can't say too much. Let's put it that way. But that was not the right move. And that's why we're sitting here to put it out there and let people understand that you should review all options and make the right move.
Absolutely. Yeah. Tito.
I mean, it's an interesting topic. You guys have said it all. Pretty much buy or sell when you're ready to buy. Don't ever think that, okay, I'm gonna sell now and hold on to that money. It's a risk. It's a risk that I don't advise, especially if you still want to live in the city or town or economy where you plan on buying. If you're moving, it's a different thing. If you're moving to another province, if you're moving to another country, whatever the case is, it's different. But if you're still going to be in the same situation, then um, I agree that you should sell when you're ready to buy. Um, the market in the past 10, 15 years has been very wavy, and mostly to the seller's advantage most of the time. So don't ever get worried that, oh, this is the best deal I can get. I can't get any better.
Yep.
Because there's always better. Like Kola said earlier, there's the topic of immigration where people are constantly coming in. And when you have people coming in, they need a place to stay.
Exactly.
So you would always want for homes. People would always want for houses. They would always want for properties. So don't ever feel rushed. A lot of times we find ourselves with agents that kind of try to stir the pot to their own advantage and not necessarily looking out for you, their clients. So be careful. If you have someone that's giving you advice and it's where the advice that you're getting, if it sounds like, okay, this person is not really trying to get something from me, they're looking out for my best interest, most likely they are looking out for your best interest. So I would just advise people to listen, watch the market, do not take decisions in a rush. Don't rush to don't get panicked. Don't feel panicked and rush to make decisions, especially when it comes to purchasing or letting go of property, because it is the biggest investment that you would ever make. It's one of your largest investments in life. So you have to be careful how you approach buying and selling of real estate. A lot of people have made mistakes, especially in the volatile market that we've been having right now, where things are up and down, up and down. They're up for a while and then they go down and then they come back up. People have made so many mistakes. A lot of people have jumped into the market thinking, oh, this is the time for me to buy, and they've bitten more than they could chew, and they can't handle the pressures of what they've purchased, and they have to invariably let things go and lose money in the process. So I would advise anyone coming into real estate, study the market, listen, read up information about buying and purchasing, especially where you are. Get good advice. Find someone who can give you good advice and weigh the different advice. Don't just go to one person. Seek out 2 3 people before you make your decision, and weigh the advice that you get against each other so that you're not making a mistake when you're purchasing or trying to let go of a property. Again, I can't hammer this enough. Do not sell if you're not ready to buy.
Ready to buy.
Especially if you're going to keep your money invested in real estate. When you're letting go of something, make sure that there's something else that you can purchase for sure.
Talking about those immigrants, thanks, when immigrants come into the country, last year we had 434,000 or 431,000. I stand to be corrected.
We actually had
430-something thousand immigrants coming to.
No, we had more. At first, the government said we had like almost 500,000.
Yeah.
And then afterwards, there was a new report that showed that we had almost 1 million people coming to Canada.
Last year, 2022?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
I think the 435 is Ontario.
Okay, because I was going to say, usually the stats are that when you have that number of those immigrating to Canada that year, 80% of immigrants come into Ontario.
Mm-hmm.
Now, another 80% of that 80% in Ontario are in the GTA.
Mm-hmm.
So you can imagine the influx of people. When these people come in, they don't carry houses in their bags.
No way.
Those suitcases you see don't have houses in them. They need a place to stay. Well, living things, not just humans. Your major priority is accommodation. They need a place to stay. We didn't build 500,000 new houses last year to support those 500,000 or 1 million people that came into the country.
Mm-hmm.
Where are they going to stay? That's why demand has constantly been outweighing supply, because Canada has its door open for immigrants. Now, as long as that continues, and we don't kick off at an extremely fast pace to build more, if you are holding on to real estate, you're holding on to something potentially worth more than gold, you should never be pressured to sell. Because in this case, I'm sorry to say, I think other than their financial personal situation, the realtor that handled this case also, based on the story, contributed a little bit of pressure to push them to sell. That was not in their best interest. That was in the realtor's interest, right? So they sold under pressure from different angles, but they've sold, right? But it's always better when you're in that position and you're holding on to real estate. Don't be scared of, oh, this is my best deal. Nah, it may always get better than what you have today, which is
most likely
95% of the time. That's what happens. Hopefully the Canadian market stays strong.
For a long time.
In indications are that it will continue to stay strong. We have that immigration factor that is really helping. At the same time, our mortgages are set in such ways that we used to, I don't have the most recent data on that, but as of late last year, we had less than 1%. It was 0 point something percent mortgage failure rate in Canada.
Yeah, that's pretty.
That is extremely impressive.
Yeah.
People do whatever it takes to maintain and pay their mortgages. So we don't foresee a situation where people start walking out on their mortgages. Mortgages in Canada are quite strict, right? The banks, the lenders do a lot of due diligence to approve you for a mortgage, right? And based on that, that really helps our market to continue to stay strong as well, because we don't have a lot of high risk mortgages out there, right? And when people do fall into that high risk situation, as it may seem, there's usually that outlet of refinancing, of consolidating to keep them going because of the positive equity situation that we've seen over the decade. So when you have that real estate in your hands, you should be confident, right? When you want to put it out there for sale, that you have what the market needs. That's the truth. You have what the market needs. There's always a buyer. There's always a buyer for every property, even if it's run down, ramshackle. There's a property we worked on. The wife and I worked on for some clients that we looked at potentially as their first home, right, with a very tight budget. When we walked into that property, it needed so much work, right? There was opportunity there, right? Honestly, it was extremely impressive what that property sold for, because that property sold at a very high value.
I would say 50% higher than it should have.
That it should have.
That's
how much the demand
is out there.
Supply.
Yeah.
So you have gold. Anybody that has a property right now in today's market has gold. Treat it as such. Don't let anybody rush you into letting go of it.
If you do let go of it, make sure you're holding on to another one.
Yeah, because you have gold right now.
Nice. I mean, it's a people really need to think properly, like you guys rightly highlighted. I mean, you have to think that process through end to end, from start to finish. You're trying to sell. What is the plan to buy the next property? What do I need to do to be able to achieve that plan? All those things need to be set in motion. And if they're set in motion, then it makes sense to pull the trigger on selling. But if they're not, hold on to that asset, hold on to that property. There are options for you. Even if you feel like, you know what, I'm under pressure financially, I have debt, I have this and that. Callers highlighted several options for you. You can consolidate all those other, debts and, put it under your mortgage where you can easily manage the repayments. There's even an option for you potentially upfront the repayments on some of these facilities as well, on the mortgages. So there's several options out there. Speak to a mortgage broker, and work with realtors that genuinely, like Tinu highlighted, they genuinely have your interest at heart. They're not just thinking about their pockets, right? They're not just out to get you to sell so they, get the remuneration and just walk away into the sunset and then leave you to clean up the mess afterwards. So I mean, it's just really, really important to think these things through.
Sorry, just to highlight what you just mentioned now. When you have a realtor that is looking to sell your property, you have the right to ask them questions.
Exactly.
What are the plans for me getting the next one that I want to buy?
Absolutely.
I want to put my property in the market today to sell it, but I still need a roof over my head. How am I going to get the next one? You can ask them, what plans do you have? How are we going to achieve
correct
getting into the next one? If that realtor doesn't have options, answers for you, do not proceed with that deal. Because if you fail to plan, you plan to fail.
Correct.
And it just becomes more, it's to your own detriment. Because hey, like Heidi said, that realtor is going to walk away when the deal is done. He probably has his own home that he's going back to. He's going to get paid, right? Or multiple homes. He's going to get paid, but then you left in quote and unquote homeless.
Yeah.
Right. So it's a very tough decision, and it has to be a very well planned decision.
Yeah.
It's not something to rush into. So
for sure,
has to be carefully thought out. So So I mean, you guys, would like to, thank you for joining us on today's episode. It's been a pleasure to have you on. I think Tinu, maybe you want.
Yeah, I just wanted to say something. I think maybe we should have a forum where people can ask questions.
Yeah.
Sending their questions. We'll probably work on creating a link or an email as a group that we can have out to the people. And if anybody has questions or they want to know more, they can always email us. And we'll be happy to get back to them. I think it's something that would help.
And even suggesting topics that you want us to discuss and elaborate on.
Exactly. Absolutely. So, I mean, on our next episode, we'll share our email address to the audience, so that they can feel free to reach out to us, ask us any questions. We will be happy to respond via email, and potentially, depending on how crucial some of those questions may be, we can actually have a topic, an episode dedicated to some of those kind of questions, just to address them in detail and to unpack all the nuances of those kind of questions. So that's a brilliant suggestion. So I mean, thank you all very much for joining us. Our next episode, we'll be talking about moving from renting to home ownership. What do you need to do? What do you need to do to achieve that? With most people, what we find is that because you don't typically, it's not totally wrong to be a tenant, right? Because at some point you would have to be a tenant and then move from being a tenant into a home a home owner, right? So, but at the same time, if you do not have that goal, if you do not have that plan, in front of you, it becomes a little difficult, because at that point you're not really paying attention. You're not deliberate about your path from being a tenant into home ownership. So what we're trying to do is break down that process for you, right? What does it take to build your credit? What does it take to save up to have the required down payment to be able to purchase a property? what are the different options or strategies that you can apply to owning a property. Can you rent where you want to live and own a property somewhere else? What are the different options that are available to you? So these are some of the things that we're going to be delving into on our next episode. I would like you to join us on that episode. We'll also bring a financial planner that can help talk about how to save, how to cut unnecessary expenses, how to streamline your finances in a way that you're running your life, in your financial life, in a very healthy way. So we look forward to you guys joining us, and so see you on the next episode.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Enjoy the week, guys.
It was fun.
All right, take care.
All right, take care. Bye.